Frances Magee was an active philanthropist in the fields of education, affordable housing, and social equity. She was always generous with her time, her knowledge, and her art. The first works in her collection came from extended family. Building on the group of canonized masters, Frances sought out the art of her time. Independent-minded and forward-thinking, she collected art with extraordinary foresight, acquiring exquisite examples by her contemporaries. With her discerning eye for quality, Frances gravitated towards works that moved her. Each of these can now be considered iconic examples of modern and contemporary masters. Her keen eye for space and form, nurtured by her architecture studies at Bennington College, was perfectly balanced by a spirited sense of fun and style, evidenced by the luminous, colorful works by HELEN Frankenthaler, Mark Rothko, and Sam Francis. Frances bought only works she truly loved and built a collection that speaks so eloquently to her character, revealing a woman of impeccable taste and great intelligence. Rothko's early works on paper from the 1950s are very rare and do not regularly appear at auction. Untitled, executed in 1959, emits a sublime luminosity that stands equal to the artist's esteemed monumental paintings on canvas. Yet the more personal proportions and exceptionally dynamic feathered brushstrokes at the edges of the three floating bands of color allow for even closer inspection and absorbing reflection. Red is an important color for Rothko, distinguishing some of his best-known paintings, including the Seagram murals from 1958, now in the collection of the Tate Modern in London. Untitled from 1959 was acquired shortly after it was executed by Frances Magee in the 1960s from the Bianchini Gallery in New York and remained in her collection for over 50 years. Painted in 1920 to 1921, Femme, assise sur un balcon is a quintessential example of Matisse's early Nice paintings. This work was painted during Matisse's stay at the Hôtel de la Méditerranée along the famed Promenade des Anglais, allowing the artist exceptional coastal views as pictured in the background. During his time in Nice, his works became increasingly luminous, airy and delicate, often featuring interiors suffused with light from nearby windows and balconies. Of the related balcony scenes, the present work is among the most richly patterned and colorful, featuring the sitter's detailed Spanish-style shawl. This painting has belonged in the same family collection for nearly 100 years. Purchased by businessman, collector, and philanthropist Samuel Lewison in 1929, Femme, assise sur un balcon was gifted to his niece, Dorothy Lehman Bernard, who later gifted it to her daughter-in-law, Frances Magee. Black Touch is a pivotal example of HELEN Frankenthaler's early 1960s soak-stained paintings, which powered her to enormous success as a pioneer of the color field movement. Executed in 1965, Black Touch is an exceptional presentation of Frankenthaler's deft use of black paint amongst flowing geometric zones of color, accentuating her painterly technique. Created on the floor as opposed to an easel or wall, Black Touch achieves a resplendent sense of fluidity within a carefully constructed composition. Closely after the completion of Black Touch, Frankenthaler's influence as a leading figure within the 1960s color field movement was cemented by her selection as one of 4 artists to represent the United States at the Venice Biennale in 1966. Frankenthaler invites the viewer to dissolve themselves in the saturated, energetic surface of Black Touch, enveloping the viewer in meditative watches of diluted paint easing into the work like the paint which has eased into the unprimed canvas. Black Touch was acquired by Frances the year that it was executed in 1965 from the Andre Emmerich Gallery in New York, another work acquired over 5 decades ago. Executed in 1963 at Jasper Johns' legendary Front Street studio, Figure 2 is an intimately scaled and monochromatic example of his iconic figures, or single numerals, he isolated onto a rectangular field, which continued in various sizes and colors from 1955 through the 1970s. By harnessing the connotative power of sign, Johns removed all inclination on the part of the viewer to discern or associate a narrative in his work, leaving only a primordial impulse to appreciate Figure 2 for its enchanting physicality. In the encrusted, heavily worked surface of Figure 2, divested of color, parts of which remain semi-translucent to reveal the newsprint collage underneath, the viewer can indulge the eye in the sheer beauty of Johns' chosen medium. Testifying to its rarity, Figure 2 is one of 5 encaustic and collage figure paintings that remain in private hands, with the majority of the series now residing in prestigious international collections. Frances Magee acquired most of her art over 50 years ago, and she lived with and loved each work throughout her lifetime. Sotheby's is honored to be presenting her collection at auction in our marquee spring sales. These highlights will be sold in our modern evening sale on May 16th and contemporary evening sale on May 18th. Additional highlights in our day sales are a gorgeous Barbara Hepworth slate and wood sculpture titled Poised Form with Circle from 1965, offered in our modern day sale on May 17th, and Robert Rauschenberg's number 307, a large oil newsprint collage on canvas from 1958 to be sold on May 19th.